The origin of Bidenbucks actually starts back in 2020 with the Zuckerberg scandal. In the lead up to the 2020 election, Mark Zuckerberg and his wife gave more than $400 million. And so what they did is they pitched this money as a response to COVID-19. And they were going to help election workers get personal protective equipment. But that's not what the money was used for. The money was actually used to drive out voters. It went disproportionately to Democrat strongholds. Well, now the Biden administration is taking that same scheme and doubling down. And so instead of Mark Zuckerberg, it's President Biden. And instead of $400 million, it is unlimited funding, resources, and reach of the federal government and its offices located in states across the country. And so what happened is back in March of 2021, Executive Order 14019 was signed by President Biden. The order commands every federal agency to do two things: promote voter registration and promote voter participation. The order also commands every federal agency to solicit and support, quote, approved third-party organizations to use federal agency resources to help mobilize voters. And what is mobilizing voters? It's getting out the vote. It's something campaigns do. What little we know so far is deeply troubling. First, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has transformed more than 1,400 federally qualified health centers located across the U.S. into voter registration hubs. The Department of Education is using federal work-study funds to literally hire an army of college workers to help turn out the vote for the left. The U.S. Department of Labor is transforming 2,300 job centers, again, located in every state across the country, into voter registration hubs. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is allowing funds that are used for food stamp administration to be used for this effort. And so what does that mean, voter registration hubs? Under a federal law, the National Voter Registration Act, certain federal agencies can be designated as these hubs if states request that they be designated and the agency accepts. But what comes with that designation is not just the ability to hand out voter registration applications, but to actually help people fill out those applications and then collect the applications on behalf of the voter with the promise to turn it into the state. And so all of these different centers, all these different federal offices located across the country are being turned into these voter registration hubs. The concern here is that these, quote, approved third-party organizations that the Biden White House approves to engage in this activity are going to use federal resources and federal reach to target groups of left-leaning voters. And so we're left to trust that as they're engaging in this voter registration effort, that everything is going to be above board. The second way this is also illegal is under a federal law called the Anti-Deficiency Act. And so the Anti-Deficiency Act says federal agencies cannot spend any money unless Congress has appropriated that money to spend. But here, Congress never allocated money to carry out this scheme. And this scheme costs money, right? To allow third-party groups to come in, to order federal agencies to engage in behavior. And so the problem is they can't do that. That's against the law. And the last thing that they might be violating is the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. And this is important because this is actually the law that the Biden administration claims gives them the authority to do what they're doing. And that's because under the NVRA, a federal agency can be designated as a voter registration hub only by the state. And then once that designation is made, quote, by the state, then the federal agency has to accept that designation before it can then carry out the activities. And so what we're seeing across the country is a number of states where there's an elected official that happens to be from the same political party as the current president who is supposedly designating agencies. The other thing going on is federal agencies who haven't been designated and haven't accepted a designation appear to be acting as if they already have been designated. And so if they're doing that, not only does that violate that federal law called the National Voter Registration Act, it also violates another law called the Administrative Procedure Act. That federal law just says federal agencies can only do what Congress has given them power to do. And so if they're acting beyond the scope of their power as outlined in the law, then they're violating the Administrative Procedure Act. And so again, going back to the lack of transparency, if everything that the Biden administration is trying to do is above board, if everything they're trying to do is what they really say, registering all types of voters, then why all this secrecy? Why not announce from the top of the hills all the great things you're doing and disclose the plans and all the details of what you're doing. But the point is, this isn't about registering all types of voters. This is about registering only a certain type of voter. The people that decide who gets to be president of the United States shouldn't be politically appointed bureaucrats leading federal executive branch agencies. It should be the American people.